Dr. Gupta, thanks for joining the Pain and Performance podcast. I'm excited to do this one.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited to talk about my favorite topic about thyroid and how people can get it better and what it does to people's body.
Yeah, we put out kind of a little questionnaire of like, hey, what questions do you have for Dr. Gupta? And um, you know, talked about Hashimoto's and thyroid function. And I don't know if I was expecting to get back that many questions, but we probably got back like 50 to 60 questions on thyroid function and diagnosis. And there's a lot of like mysticism around. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but in the last probably 2 weeks, there's been a lot of information that's coming out with semaglutide, and that seems to be like this on the cover of everything. So I got a bunch of questions on that. So this will be fun, but let's give people some context on the thyroid gland first, just because I think we hear it, and I don't know if a lot of people understand like the function of it. So can we kind of go through thyroid gland function and how it affects the body real quick?
Absolutely. So, and it's very important to understand, like how important in this teeny tiny gland. It's basically one of those glands without which we cannot survive. So, thyroid is a very small butterfly shaped gland located right in our neck. The major function of the thyroid gland is to produce this thyroid hormone, which is the thyroid hormone, which is mainly T4, which is the inactive form of thyroid hormone. Then it needs to go to the different parts of the body and it gets converted into active form of thyroid hormone, which is the T3. Now, literally, thyroid hormone, as I said, is important for survival. Even when we are a small kind of, fetus inside, our mother's womb, if we do not have enough thyroid hormone, we will not be able to develop our brains, we will not be able to develop our whole body. It's so much important. So that's the reason thyroid hormone is important from each and every organ from our body, starting from our brain. So when we do not have enough thyroid hormone, then our brain do not function very well. We have brain fog symptoms, we have memory issues, we are forgetting things. We call it as a brain fog. That happens with a lot of people. Then going down, obviously to our gut or our GI system. When we do not have enough thyroid hormone, then again we have issues with constipation. Then we have issues with bloating issues. We do not digest our food properly. Then, like we have a lot of reproductive issues. Like we have seen a skyrocket issues with infertility. And a lot of those infertility issues, are we don't know the reason for them. And those unknown reasons can be related to thyroid, because the thyroid again regulates our infertility or our fertility issues. Then it works with the adrenal gland. A lot of people are fatigued or tired all the time. That is because thyroid hormone is very much important, working in tandem with the adrenal glands. Thyroid also controls how we metabolize our food, the carbohydrates, the fats, the proteins. So again, when you're not doing it, that leads to weight gain. A lot of people with thyroid issues suffer from this weight gain and they're not able to lose it, because thyroid hormone is a metabolic hormone. It works directly on your mitochondria. Now, because it works on the mitochondria, again, an important factor happens is that it leads to aging. It leads to kind of immunity issues. Our body's immunity is very low. So people get very frequent infections, if they have thyroid issues going on. Then we cannot regulate our temperature. So a lot of people with thyroid hormone issues feel cold all the time. Or it is needed for our skin health. So hair health. A lot of people will have hair thinning issues. They will feel that their hair is brittle or falling out, or the skin is very dry, or they have eczema issues. So literally from head to bottom, each and every organ of our body needs thyroid hormone. And when we don't have it, or we see fluctuating levels of thyroid hormone, it causes all different kinds of problems.
Yeah, I think, and that's probably when you start to dig into like the symptoms of thyroid dysfunction. I think it relates to so many of the issues that people have today, which is probably why we got such a response, because you're like, I'm waking up and I'm fatigued. Okay, well, I type that in and it pops up like, check your thyroid. Hey, I'm having trouble losing weight. Check your thyroid. I'm having skin issues. I'm having, infections and sickness, thyroid. So I think when people start to look at some of the issues that are so prevalent today, thyroid matches a lot of those, which kind of comes to the question, is our current lifestyle, like what we have today, and a lot of the kind of issues that a lot of people are having, with this kind of modern lifestyle, is that the actual leading cause that's changing thyroid function, or is something else going on that matches those symptoms? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Have we changed something in the last 50 years that has negatively affected a lot of people's thyroid function?
Absolutely. So, very important question. And that's where I want to go a little bit on the history about the thyroid function and the different disorders. So, when we actually first came to know about thyroid disorders, we kind of diagnosed hypothyroidism, which is the low thyroid issues, which was like, in early 1900s or even before that. And the major reason at that time was iodine deficiency. And that's the reason majority of people were getting thyroid disorders. So then what we started doing, we started implementing this program of supplementing everybody with iodine, whether it was iodized salt, whether it was iodine fortified food. We thought that the incidence of thyroid disorders will go down, but in reality, instead of going down, actually they started going up. And now in 20th century, the number one reason of thyroid disorder is not iodine deficiency anymore. It's actually Hashimoto's, which is the autoimmune condition of the thyroid gland. And most people are not even aware of it. Everybody's thinking, oh man, I'm iodine deficient. Let me just go and supplement with iodine and eat iodine rich food. That should take care of things for me. But they're actually doing more harm than good, because excess iodine actually can cause Hashimoto's disease also. So people are not aware of it. And nobody's talking about it that Hashimoto's is the most common autoimmune condition across the board, across the world. And most people are not aware of it. Most clinicians are not even checking their thyroid patients whether they have Hashimoto's or not. And Hashimoto's being an autoimmune condition, we know that the incidence of autoimmune conditions have skyrocketed in the last 50 years. And obviously, there are a lot of different reasons for it, because autoimmune conditions are very, very complicated. It is not a single approach. What happens is that we are used to saying that, okay, well, there is only one cause of a particular disease. Let's say a person gets a pneumonia in their lungs, right? And that's an infection caused by one bacteria. So people are used to, okay, well, I got one bacteria and that's the reason I got this infection and I'm sick for it. If I take an antibiotic, I got rid of this bacteria, everything will be okay. Autoimmune conditions are multifactorial. So we have to rethink about disease process now. They're not just because of one bacteria or one virus or one thing. They're multifactorial. And where you pointed out, environment is the main thing which causes these issues, whether it is a diet, whether it is the toxins, whether it is the pollution, whether it is the stress we are going through, whether it is the changing, things we are living into, our houses, our places, all of these things contribute towards causing these autoimmune conditions. And we have to factor all of these in to kind of find a way out of it.
How is Hashimoto's currently diagnosed? How does somebody get a diagnosis for that?
Absolutely. So let me again differentiate a little bit of hypothyroidism with Hashimoto's, because a lot of people don't even know about it and they think they're the same thing.
Yeah.
So there are three main conditions: hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's disease, and hyperthyroidism. Hypothyroidism basically means that your thyroid gland is not able to produce enough thyroid hormone, or basically not able to keep up with the demand of thyroid hormone in the body, right? The second condition is hyperthyroidism, where the thyroid gland is actually making excessive amount of thyroid hormone, which your body cannot handle. And then comes the Hashimoto's disease. Hashimoto's disease is an autoimmune condition. In this condition, your body is producing antibodies, and these antibodies starts a very slow destruction of your thyroid gland. And then slowly and slowly, this destruction ultimately causes hypothyroidism. So that's the reason it is very important to know why you're getting hypothyroidism. Is it because of Hashimoto's or not? And this is where, like testing for Hashimoto's is important, and most people are not getting it. Because if you go to your regular doctor and ask them to check your thyroid level, they only check one blood test, which is the TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone. And that's the only way to actually check whether you have a thyroid disorder or not, right? But if you want to know whether you have Hashimoto's or not, then you need to get antibody levels checked. The two antibody levels that can be checked or one is TPO, which is the thyroid peroxidase antibody, and the second one is thyroglobulin antibodies. The good part is that these tests are available in regular labs across the board. So you don't have to go to a specialty labs to get those checked. And if your antibody levels are higher than the reference range of that particular labs, that means you have Hashimoto's. You don't need a biopsy, you don't need an ultrasound, you don't need a CAT scan, you don't need anything more to tell you that you have Hashimoto's or not. Presence of antibodies are telling you of Hashimoto's. Now, in several people, the reason we want to check antibodies in everyone is that Hashimoto's precedes hypothyroidism. So if we get, check these antibody levels, we might be able to find Hashimoto's at early stages where your thyroid is still functioning and you have not gone to the hypothyroidism stage. And if we work on your Hashimoto's then and there, we can safeguard your thyroid gland.
So in some of these people who have, sorry to cut you off, because we got a bunch of questions on this. Like, I went to my doctor and they checked my thyroid, which was a TSH test, exactly what you said. And they keep telling me that it's fine. But I'm having these classic symptoms of thyroid dysfunction on some level. They're like, everything that we just went through, I'm having some version of those. Should that person like go that next level up and say, I'm matched too well to what this picture looks like. Let's do an antibody test and see. And if we rule that out, if TSH looks good and I don't have any antibodies, okay, well now I need to dig deeper because it appears that it's not thyroid function. Is that the person who should go and do that?
Absolutely. So even beyond TSH, so like TSH is one test for the thyroid, but we should also check regular thyroid hormones also, which is the T3 and the T4. So that's again the second test that they should ask your doctors to run it. And then definitely the antibodies. Because again, as I said, you might have Hashimoto's and you don't even know about it. Your doctor might not even know about it, right? So that's very important if you check all of those symptoms to get the complete blood work done, including the Hashimoto's test, to see if you have those. And if you don't have those, then yes, you should look for other reasons. That is first. But second of all, we do have now research studies suggesting that the symptoms do precede, minimum of 2 or 3 years, when the lab work actually catch up with it. So we are still thinking, well, are there other avenues for diagnosing Hashimoto's at even earlier stages or not? Obviously, yet we don't have a blood test, yet, we do not have those, a consensus of what all things we can look into to diagnose those patients with what you call as preclinical Hashimoto's. But I think right now doing the blood test absolutely makes sense.
I love that because, I think there's a lot of people who get frustrated with this pathway. So it kind of sounds like, hey, look, a lot of the answers to these things are probably going to improve your health anyway. So if you match this and we haven't got the clinical test yet, it's probably worth a 6-month experiment, a 12-month experiment to go down the treatment pathway, as long as you're doing it, starting from a safe standpoint and really monitoring a lot of changes. But it's probably worth it to do that and monitor symptoms and see what kind of changes you get to. Let's dive into that part of it though. So let's take someone who either has been diagnosed with it, or they feel like they match all these symptoms. What do we currently have that can start to change this, that can start to alter the symptoms or the function in terms of Hashimoto's? And let's, if we can layer in some thyroid function in there as well, I'd love to hear some of the things that are out there.
So absolutely. So again, what is the conventional way of treating any person who has thyroid disorder? Whether Hashimoto's or whether hypothyroidism, the only treatment right now available is a medicine called levothyroxine, which is the thyroid hormone. Now, to my surprise, most people don't know that this thyroid hormone medicine is not doing anything for Hashimoto's at all. People think that it is treating their Hashimoto's or helping their Hashimoto's. No, it is not doing anything for Hashimoto's. It is a band-aid which is supporting your thyroid gland with extra thyroid hormone. The destruction of thyroid gland is happening day in, day out in Hashimoto's disease. So very important for people to understand that. And that's where it is very important to actually lower the antibodies, work on the underlying process of Hashimoto's, which is the autoimmunity. So you can safeguard your thyroid gland so that in the future, your medicine dosage doesn't increase, or you don't go to that point that your thyroid completely gives up and it is not functioning at all, right?
Right. So we
So that's very
know that
important.
if you have Hashimoto's, that if we're just giving you levothyroxine, that we are not doing anything for your long-term thyroid function. We know that it's just continuing to degrade.
Exactly. So very
Man.
important piece to understand. And if you go, most people when they will go to their regular doctor, they will again be told that you cannot do anything. Nothing is going to change these antibodies. They are going to go higher and higher. And finally, one fine day when your thyroid is destroyed, then they might come down. But that is not true. We have so many research studies that you can do things currently that will change these antibodies. We see in our practice day in, day out, people antibodies levels always go down, and sometimes they even can come back to normal because we work on the root cause approach. That's what people have to understand. So what is Hashimoto's disease? Research is very clear. Hashimoto's disease is an interplay between your genetic makeup and the environment around you. So a lot of people will say, well, it is in my genes, so I cannot do anything. No, that is not the reality. Again, there are two components to it. One is the genetic and second one is the environment. You cannot change your genes, but you can change the environment. So if you change your environment, you can take control of Hashimoto's disease. So what I've identified is that there are 5 major root causes which causes Hashimoto's disease. And those 5 root causes, first one is food sensitivities. Now we have heard food is medicine, but wrong foods can actually again leads to triggering of autoimmune disease like Hashimoto's disease. So it is very important to kind of eliminate those food which we know that are inflammation causing and destroys your body. So that's the first thing that people need to work on. It's food sensitivities or food which are bad for their body. The second one is nutritional deficiencies. Now, a lot of people are very, very, cognizant about what food they're putting into their body. They're trying to be eating healthy. But the research studies now show that our current food is low in vitamins and minerals as compared to 20 years ago. So even though you might be eating the healthiest diet, but you might not be getting all those nutrients from your food.
Yeah.
And thyroid gland needs a lot of vitamins and minerals to produce this thyroid hormone. So if you're low in those vitamins and minerals, then your body again kind of causes inflammation and causes Hashimoto's disease. The third one is toxins. Our world today is laden with toxins. And we know time and again that these toxins destroy thyroid gland and causes inflammation. Now, whether those are heavy metals like lead and mercury or arsenic or aluminium, or it is the mold toxins which are present in our environment, or it is the environmental toxins like all these sprays, pesticides, organicides that we are spraying on, or all the chemicals that we are using around in our houses. All of these things can lead to Hashimoto's disease. So that's the third root cause. The fourth one is stress. Now, stress I define is anything that is foreign to your body or keeps your body kind of stressed out all the time, which can be physical stress, mental stress, spiritual stress, emotional stress. All of these are stressors. And we live in a world currently where stress is just spoiling on us all the time, right? So that's very important thing. And then comes infections, chronic infections. We know that one infection, Epstein-Barr virus, which is the infectious mononucleosis. Several research studies have proved that reactivation of Epstein-Barr virus can lead to Hashimoto's disease. Then we have other parasites in our gut like blastocystis, which can lead to Hashimoto's disease. Other kind of viral chronic infections, even the present pandemic we are dealing with, we have seen an uptake of Hashimoto's disease, people who have got COVID infection. So several chronic infections can also lead to Hashimoto's disease also. So these are the 5 major root causes which play a role in causing Hashimoto's disease. Now, the main thing is that people think they might have just one root cause, and they're again looking for that one main thing which has caused it. Through my research, what I've identified, most people will have minimum of 2 or 3 root causes which are together playing a role in causing Hashimoto's disease. So it is very important to work on multifactorial
Yeah.
approach, all of the root causes rather than only just one.
That's brilliant, Doc. I love breaking it down like that. Let's pull these out a little bit. So let's go back to the food sensitivity thing because I think that's something that a lot of people will miss. Like I even see that in my practice. Patients come in and they're like, I don't know what happened. I was feeling amazing, and now I'm having this massive flare up. I didn't do anything. And when we really start digging in, they had a 2 or 3 day period where they were eating something that their body didn't like. Whether that's processed or high sugar, or you could kind of go down the rabbit hole, and they never even gave that a thought that could be what caused this physical symptom. So my question on food sensitivity is how do we start to identify what foods are we sensitive? Do those food sensitivity tests that we see actually give us good information? What's the best way for people to start to find which foods they do need to avoid?
Absolutely, a very great question. So, first of all, I want to kind of differentiate food allergies from food sensitivities because, again, people know what the difference is and they think that, I have been to my allergy doctor and they did a testing on me and I was negative, right? So, food allergy means, let's say you are allergic to peanuts. You consume peanuts, you blow up like a balloon, and you land up in the emergency room. That is food allergy. Food sensitivity is that, let's say your body is sensitive to gluten. You eat gluten, it will produce very small amount of these intermediate chemicals in your body, which will start a very slow destruction in your gut and other parts of the body. So you will never see a very full blown reactions which is immediate. The reactions might be next day or maybe next week or even longer than that. So it is very difficult to identify these food sensitivities. Now, we have identified certain foods which are like causing food sensitivities in majority of the people, right? These are like gluten, dairy, sugary fruits, and processed foods and processed meats. Almost 90% of my clients who have Hashimoto's disease are sensitive to either of these foods. So first of all, the best thing is to maybe avoid these foods and see how you do. Now, the important factor is that once you consume, let's say, gluten and your body is sensitive to it, it will take 3 weeks for your body to, process all the antibodies which is formed by one consumption of gluten. So you have to do that gluten-free diet or a dairy-free diet minimum of 4 weeks to see a difference how you feel on it. Now, the second aspect is that, as you mentioned, there are so many food sensitivity tests which are out there. A lot of people are marketing it, a lot of people are getting those. Are they perfect or not? Unfortunately, they are not perfect. I have never seen a food sensitivity test which is perfect. There are different kinds. Somebody is checking IgG, somebody is checking, other chemical mediators. Yes, they can increase the sensitivities or specificity, but we do not have a perfect test. So let's say if some people are gluten free for like years, if they do this test, the gluten might be negative on there because you have not eaten gluten for a long time, so it might not show up. On the other hand, people who are dairy free, they might be eating almonds or almond milk like each and every meal, and it might show some reactivity towards almond because your body is consuming them too much. So that's the reason I always tell people to kind of, interpret these test results with a grain of salt. You have to be careful of what you are looking into. Now, these tests are only used as a guide. Let's say, as you mentioned about a patient where 3 days, they started flaring up with each and every food. We literally patients come to see us that I can only eat 5 foods. What should I do? Then how do you identify food sensitivities for those patients, right? Then these test results might give us some ideas where to start. Let's say, okay, well, you are sensitive to these 15 foods. Okay, well, we have still these 10 foods. You might be able to start and see where you are, right? So we use them as a guide, not an absolute terms that, okay, well, if this says this, then you have to do these things.
Love it. Yeah, I think that's a really good approach because at the end of the day, we're talking about like function and how people feel, right? So use the test to maybe give you some starting points of maybe these aren't, but how do I feel when I pull these out? And I've had a lot of people who kind of said what you said is that like, if it's something you eat a lot and it says that you do have a sensitivity to it, that might just be to the quantity that you're taking in of that. So kind of playing with some of those things. That perfect. So going down now to like a nutritional deficiency level. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like of all the things that we check on people, the most common thing that gets missed is just, do we have the basic building blocks in our body to allow it to function well? And that's not tested very often. So a lot of times we have our patients going and doing some of these nutrient tests checking all vitamins, minerals, hormone production, and seeing where some of that stuff's at. There's tons of companies starting to do it, which I love. I'm glad we're giving people more access to that. Even some of these easier blood tests for people to take and kind of get somebody to come meet them, I think is fantastic. Just because it's going to start forcing us to have these conversations more in doctors' offices. How do you like to see that tested? What are the main kind of nutrients that you're looking for on there? Is there any of your kind of favorite tests? Not to kind of directly point any of them out, but we can get into that if people really want to try some of these things.
Absolutely. Again, like as I said, thyroid hormone production requires a lot of different vitamins and minerals, right? Now, a lot of people come to see us say, "Well, I'm taking a multivitamin. That means I'm getting all the vitamins and minerals on top of what I'm eating. I'm eating a healthy diet." Well, multivitamins are just basically throwing things randomly at your body, but everybody body is different. Your body needs are different. So you cannot say that, the same vitamin is needed in the same quantity in each and every person, right? So it's very important to have this individualized approach where you know what is needed by your body, right? Because sometimes we have seen people reaching toxic levels of certain vitamins and minerals because they were just taking too much of those. Because I read on internet, well, vitamin D is really good or vitamin A is really good. Let me just have 50,000 units of those every day because more is always good, right? But then that can lead to toxicity, right?
Right.
So it's very important to know there are certain vitamins and minerals which are very important for thyroid, like selenium, like zinc, like all the B vitamins, like magnesium, like vitamin D. All of these vitamins and minerals are importantly needed by your thyroid gland to function properly. Now, out of these, the regular blood test can only check your vitamin D levels or your B12 levels, but they don't have the capacity to check your selenium levels or your magnesium levels properly or your zinc levels, right? So that's where it is important to do these in-depth nutritional analysis tests, which will tell us how low you are or whether you're adequate numbers or not, or whether you're too high on these
Yep.
levels, right?
Yep.
And then we can actually kind of make a personalized program how much your body needs, right? Similar with building blocks like amino acids. A lot of people are eating a lot of protein powders or eating a lot of protein, but their body is not digesting it, not absorbing it, and suddenly we see that they're low in a lot of these amino acids. And these amino acids are building blocks not only for the proteins, not only for your muscles, but also for your immune system and also for your enzymes, like your needs to process things in your body. And so we see it a lot of times that these amino acids are low, and then we figure out that maybe your gut is not functioning, and that's the reason you're low into those things. So these are great tests that gives us in-depth analysis of what is going on inside of your body, so we can take relevant steps.
Yeah.
So there are several companies. A company that we use most of the time is the Genova company. I think that has been there for a long time, and they make this test called NutriVal or a similar test, but again, other tests like SpectraCell, makes, this again cell, which is a great test. So I think these are two or three companies which have been there in the market for a long time. That gives good results.
Yeah.
And I think people at least should start looking into those.
Yeah, we've used all of those. I agree. I think all great companies that really do a great job of doing some of the testing and really diving deep into what's inside, what's in your body. Do you think that the people who are taking like the protein powders and stuff like that are trying to supplement, is that just because it's a processed protein, it's a processed amino acid, and that's why we're not getting the same results from that? Is that just a factor of kind of over processing that's making our gut not recognize it as well?
So again, the problem is that, since the protein powders became popular, each and every company is like throwing out different protein powders to us, right? And everybody claims that we have so much things added to it. So you're absolutely correct that the way they process it, we don't even know how they're extracting that protein from that particular thing, whether it is vegan, whether it is, like animal protein, or whether it is whey. We don't know that, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think, like at some level, when it is too much processed, when too many things are added, our body just doesn't utilize it as good as it's, we are using it from the food. And second of all, what I've seen is that some people utilize animal protein better than the plant-based protein, and some people utilize plant-based protein better than the animal protein. So that's again, that difference I have seen, that in certain people like one protein better than the other.
Gotcha. Yeah, helpful. Let's go to the next one. This is one I have um, I've done more deep dives into than I can go into on here. But the mold and toxicity levels in our daily environment. I've had more patients. I have a good friend. I'll tell this story real quick. Who moved from California to Texas, and I wish he would have documented everything that changed. He is a different person. He's 50 years old. He looks like he is 10 years younger than he looked 10 years ago. It's a 20-year swing. And he was living in a big high-rise place in California. He was living in LA, not, an older building. And he has gone through this complete change of who he is. All of his health markers, everything has completely changed. And now he's living in, it's a new build. He's got much more open space. There's all kind of things that go in there. But he talked to one of his old friends, and he said that they were still living in the building, and they got a notice that there was a mold toxicity that they were going to have everyone basically leave this building while they did remediation to it. Now, this is 18 months after he's been gone or something like that. And he was like, I wonder if my body was just under constant attack the whole time that I was living there, and everything just spiraled on me. So now he's obsessed with it, and that's all. Like he goes through all of these things. How do we test it? How do we find these things? Always starting to look anytime people are having symptoms of autoimmune issues, start with looking at mold, mycotoxins, any of those types of things. So how do people start to identify these things? How do we find some of them in our life, in our environment? I know this is like a crazy huge topic, but if you have some thoughts on it that people can use, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, what I have identified from my research and my clinical experience is that almost every person who has an autoimmune condition or a thyroid condition definitely will have some toxins in their body, period. No doubt about it. So that's one thing I think everybody needs to work on, is identifying the toxin and working to eliminate it, right? Because toxins are literally in our environment. And what people don't know is that our thyroid gland is like a sponge. Each and every small amount of toxin that your body gets exposed to, it directly goes to the thyroid and gets deposited over there. Now, our current industry is very smart. What they tell us is that, oh, the toxin level in this particular product is very, very less amount. It is not the toxic level. But what they don't tell you is that, body is collecting all these toxins day in, day out. And it is getting deposited in your thyroid gland. So one day that level of toxins will reach toxic levels in your thyroid gland, and it is going to cause destruction. The other piece is that we are looking at just one particular toxin, but our detox system is only one, which has to handle all different kinds of toxins. So we have to look at the collective burden of toxins in your body, which is including the mold, the environment, and obviously the heavy metals.
Yeah.
So we know about heavy metals like lead and mercury. Everybody knows about them, how bad they are for the body. That's the reason we eliminated lead a long time ago from the lead paints, right? But we still see lead and mercury in our environment, all different ways and fashions. So it's still present over there. And the mold is very, very important, right? Because we came to know about mold very recently in human bodies. We knew about mold for a long time in animals, especially the mold research was based in livestock, because they were eating all these moldy grains, which were stored improperly for a long time. And we knew about all these autoimmune conditions and other medical issues they were dealing with. But, like our human mind could not fathom that we could also get the same problems. But some smart doctors, maybe like a few years ago, started thinking, well, maybe we also get affected with mold. And to our horror, it was absolutely true that our bodies do get affected with mold, especially autoimmune tissues do get triggered with mold conditions. So very important to know about that. And then obviously the environmental toxins, all the sprays, all the organophosphates, all these chemicals which are present, in our, let's say, furnitures we are using, the non-stick cookwares you're using, all the plastics we are using, everything has toxins in it, right? So it is very overwhelming for people to kind of eliminate toxins completely. It is very difficult to do that. But what I tell people is that start looking at things, and maybe start improving your environment. That means maybe if you do have the capacity to eat organic food as much as possible, that is great. One way to reduce toxins. When you're cleaning your houses, try to use cleaning products which again are made with natural compounds, not with artificial chemicals, and use as less as possible, right? So those are again things, especially for women. All the skin care products you are using, they are very, very highly toxic. So again, using cleaner products. There is an app, or there is a website called EWG, which is the Environmental Working Group, easily available, free for everybody to use. What they have done is that they have rated majority of the products which are available, skincare products or daily products which are available on the aisles, and they have actually giving them ratings of which is the most
Nice.
toxic, which is the least toxic. So you can use that app to kind of look at your product to see all the different products, whether it is your toothpaste, whether it is your hair gel, whether it is your body wash, whether it is your cream that you're using, what ratings they have, and then maybe start changing them to a more safer products. So these are the basic things that I think each and every person should start looking to do. Less use of plastics around you, maybe use like stainless steel products or maybe glass products around you, right? So these are smaller things that people can use today itself to lower the burden of toxins. But then, if you do have Hashimoto's, I will highly recommend you to do proper testing for these toxins. Again, conventional labs will not have access to these tests. So, unfortunately, you will have to go to a specialist like a functional medicine or a naturopath who specializes into looking at these special toxin tests to know the total toxin burden, not with just one toxin, but the total toxin burden on your body, and then working on to removing them. The other caution over here is that a lot of people think, oh, well, I have toxins, let me start a detox protocol. No, never do that. Detox protocols, doing it on your own, backfires a lot of times. I have seen so many clients coming to see me. I started this detox protocol, my actually symptoms got worse. I land up in the hospital because of it. Because it's a science behind it. Detox is a very complex system. There are different phases of detox in your body. So a person needs to know what kind of toxins you're dealing with and then make a stepwise plan to safely remove those toxins. So please do not go home and buy those online detox protocols and start doing it. Please do not do that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something that I was going to get into is like how, if we do know that people have some toxicity, but we could pick like a lead or mercury or something, what does the detoxification process look like? Because we talk about it a lot with patients. Our body's really smart about these things. It doesn't want these things just floating around. So a lot of times it tries to protect us by kind of storing these in fat cells and stuff like that. And so if we're not smart about how we try and detoxify, we're actually going to release more in the short period of time and have exactly what you're talking about, where you have this, kind of worsening of everything. So what does that look like in terms of going through and actually detoxifying for some of the major ones that you see?
Right. So in that aspect, what I've identified is that there are main five root cause, five main channels which everybody detoxifies through. So one is, like your sweat glands, right? So sweating is a way, which people do release toxins out in their environment. The second one is through your gut. So every time you have a bowel movement, you are releasing toxins or eliminating toxins from your body. The third one is through your kidneys. So your kidneys, again, when you're urinating, again, are purifying your blood and releasing those toxins. The fourth one is the lymphatic channel. A lot of people don't know about this lymphatic channel, but it's a very important channel which are present in each and every person's body. And one of the main functions of the lymphatic channel is to release toxins out from your blood. And the fifth one is your liver. Everybody knows about the liver, that it is responsible for processing all the toxins. So you need to work on all of these five channels. But then even working with these five channels, there is phase one and phase two of the detox. The phase one is when you're trying to bring toxins out in your system. As you mentioned, these toxins are basically hidden in your fat cells or in your other glands in your body. So when you're trying to detoxify your body, whether it's through sweating, whether it's by taking certain supplements like glutathione, you know, which is releasing these toxins to come out in your system, you need also the second phase of the detox, where you're eliminating these toxins out from your body. So a lot of times binders are used for that purposes, to bind these toxins and release them through the gut. But again, very important, if you're already constipated, then your gut is not functioning. So all those toxins will recirculate in your body. So making sure that the gut is functioning fine, making sure your kidneys are good and you're drinking enough water. So again, those toxins are eliminated from the kidneys also. So that's very important that you're looking not only at the phase one to bring the toxins out in your system, but also working on the phase two to get these toxins out from your body in a safe fashion. And
I'm
all of these five channels needs to be worked in those situations.
I'm glad you brought up the water thing. I almost forgot about that. One of the things when I was kind of going down this pathway is how many toxins are in our public waterways. And we're showering, and a lot of us are drinking that in unpurified way. So like one of the things, just kind of watching my friend's whole journey through this stuff, that we started looking at is like actually getting water tested. But a simple thing people can do, you think about like, your skin as this just big absorbing organ, is to get, there's these little, fairly cheap or cost effective filters that you can put on like a shower head, that when you're showering, you're actually kind of removing some of the toxins in the waters that you're in. And then of course, when you're drinking, like make sure that we're drinking filtered water, where we're filtering out some of these toxins, and you're using a good filtering mechanism. That's probably a whole podcast on its own, but it's definitely something that I think people will miss. Hey, I'm trying to drink more water, doc. Yeah, but where are you getting it from? Our quality matters in food and water, certainly. So that's a brilliant approach. Let's shift gears a little bit and kind of get to some of the advanced stuff when in terms of treating or improving thyroid function or healing the thyroid gland itself. And if we're looking at functional medicine, and what it can actually do to actually reverse damage that has taken place in someone's thyroid gland. We got so many questions on stem cells, on peptide function. We were talking about semaglutide earlier. Let's look at that side and maybe kind of what's coming on the horizon. What do we have access today?
Absolutely. So I think, first of all, advanced things are always good, but I always want to make sure let's not forget the basics, right? Being a functional medicine doctor, I get wowed by these new techniques and the new advancements that are there. But a lot of times people come to see me and they have not even worked on the basics. So please first work on the basics, improve your diet, right? Doesn't matter how many supplements you take, doesn't matter how many peptides you take. If your diet is like a trash, it is not going to get better, right? So please work on the basics, improve your diet, remove what we discussed about the inflammation causing food, include foods which are anti-inflammatory to your body. Work on stress management, whether it is deep breathing, exercising, relaxing, you cultivating a hobby, do those things, right? And then changing your environment by reducing toxin burden in your body. Please make these changes, improving your sleep, right? Kind of paying more attention to your own body. That's the first thing that you need to do. Then the second step comes, in terms of what else can you do. Then that's where the supplementation can be useful. And that's where I think the testing is nice, because you look at your gut. Okay, well, what is going on in the gut? Whether you have great gut microbiome, whether you have SIBO, whether your digestion is impaired, whether you have leaky gut issues, fix your gut first. Like that's the first thing you need to do. And the second thing is replacing the vitamins and minerals that we discussed, which, your body needs. Like great research is there with selenium, like with zinc. Combination of zinc and selenium can lower antibodies. There are several research papers on it, right? So again, that's something you can work on. Vitamin D again is one of those vitamins and minerals that everybody needs in their body. So that's again something that you can utilize those. Check your levels to where you are with those, right? And then omega-3 fatty acids, they reduce inflammation in your body. Each and every person needs omega-3. So unless you're eating like fish 2 or 3 times a week, then make sure you are taking a supplementation of omega-3s. So these are again some basic things that you should look into next and see where you are. Then comes the advanced things. So there are a lot of different advancement which has come. One of those advancements is LDN, which is the low dose naltrexone. Now, low dose naltrexone, have been in use for more than 5 years now, especially in Hashimoto's condition. So naltrexone, at high doses, was used for opioid addiction. what they were used at a very low dosage of like naltrexone actually does the opposite. It reduces inflammation in the body and can actually help in autoimmune conditions. So we do have small research studies which does show that people who were treated with low dose naltrexone, they were able to not only improve their Hashimoto's but also were able to improve their thyroid levels numbers. So that's something
Beautiful.
that we lot of functional practitioners use it. The good part about LDN is that there is no downside to it. Literally, there is not much side effects of LDN which is available. The only problem is that regular pharmacies will not have LDN, so you'll have to get it compounded, because a lot of times pharmacies will add fillers to LDN. So you'll have to find a pharmacy that might be cleaner product for the LDN in that aspect.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is peptides. Peptides are into horizon. A lot of people are using peptides. I'm also peptide certified practitioner. So we use peptides a lot in our practice. So what are peptides? So first of all, peptides are small molecules which are naturally produced by your body. Basically, they are a collection of small chain amino acids, similar to proteins. Proteins are a collection of long chain amino acids. Peptides are a collection of small chain amino acids. Now, most common peptide everybody knows about is insulin. We came to know about insulin a lot of a century ago. We have been using insulin medicine, for diabetes patients for a long time. Now, the recent decade, we actually research more and more peptides, and more peptides are being coming into the market that can be useful for various diseases and things. So, a couple of the peptides, that we have seen useful. One is called BPC 157. This is a peptide which is naturally produced by your gut, which is very protective for the gut. And with any autoimmune process, leaky gut is a major process which happens, in Hashimoto's patients. And BPC 157 can help with the leaky gut, can help with your immunity, can help, rebalancing your gut microbiome. So again, very safe peptide that, can be used. The second one is thymosin alpha 1. This is a peptide which is again naturally produced by our thymus gland, which generally we have, when we are very young. The main function of this peptide is actually to retrain our immune system so that it starts functioning better again. Now, in Hashimoto's, we know that's an autoimmune condition and our immunity is messed up, right? Our immunity basically is producing these antibodies and hijacking our own immune system and attacking it. Thymosin alpha 1 retrains the immune system, so that tells them to, okay, well, no, this body is your own body. Don't attack it, okay? So this is your friend. So that what we have seen is that thymosin alpha 1 can retrain the immune system and reduce inflammation and safeguard the thyroid gland. So these are the two basic peptides that, a lot of my patients have, used. And the good part is that, there is not much side effects that we have seen in any of these peptides that can be used a lot of safe way.
Nice. Yeah, I think our listeners, we've talked a lot about kind of regenerative therapy and have used in our practice BPC 157 quite a bit in both oral and kind of sub-Q form. I know every case is independent, but if someone, they're doing all the basics and they get to this point, are you often recommending stacks of those where they'll do BPC and thymosin alpha 1 together? And what would a kind of a starting dose look like for those, for somebody who's dealing with this?
Right. So BPC, it's a pretty safe peptide even at higher doses. So generally we start with like 500 milligrams for that, once a day. As you said, the good part is that it is available orally now. So we see that, more or less orally also works equally, good, unless they have a lot of, gut related symptoms. That sometimes we use subcute, or if they have like lot of damages in their musculoskeletal system, specific joints are paining, or if they have like old muscle injuries. So BPC 157 500 milligrams is a good starting dose. Now thymosin alpha 1, actually the starting dose again differs from person to person, because it can be used anywhere from 200 milligrams to actually up to 1000 also. So that depends on the condition of the patient. A lot of people, as I mentioned, come to see us which are like reactive to each and everything. They are reacting to food, they are reacting to environment, they are reacting to toxins. They literally just cannot survive, right? So those people using thymosin a little bit at a higher dosage is useful to reduce these reactivity, because they cannot even take supplements, because even supplements they are reacting to, right? So literally very difficult to move these patients forward. So these we can use a little bit of a higher dose of thymosin alpha 1, reduce the inflammation, retrain their immune system, and they can actually take supplements after that.
Nice.
And then, we can reduce the dosage as we go along.
Yeah.
So thymosin alpha 1, the dosage varies from person to person.
Gotcha. Very helpful. I think that to go back to what you said, like, if you're not doing the basics or haven't checked those boxes, there's really no reason to do this, because even if they would have been effective for you, you're decreasing the chance of that dramatically by not having the basics checked. So like, even in a situation where this is what you need to help kind of repair and regenerate, if we don't have the basics done, you're not even going to be able to utilize these things as effectively as your body needs to. So don't skip over those and try this because like it's the fun thing, or you want that quote unquote quick fix. Have you dug into like semaglutide and the GLP-1s? I know there's at least from a weight loss, and this might be something that is more directly on like just strict hypothyroidism versus Hashimoto's. But I know there's an action on the hypothalamus. Some of the research on that seems to show that we get quite a bit of body weight reduction, which at least helps your body function better. But have y'all experimented and seen some of the usage of semaglutide or GLP-1s in the thyroid function world?
Absolutely, yes. GLP-1s, again, are kind of magical peptides. So these, before they actually became a medicine, in the peptide world, we already knew about GLP-1s and we were already using it. So the main function of GLP-1s, as we know about, is working on insulin sensitivities, right? That's what, we feel that they work on initially. Now, obviously, we know that, the scope of their work is much beyond it. And that's the beauty about the peptides, is that these are not medications which only does one work in your body. Peptide works in all different ways and fashions. So GLP-1s, not only work on insulin sensitivities, it also work on reducing inflammation in the body. It also work on a lot of different hormone rebalancing in your body that needs to happen by working on your hypothalamus, by working on your pituitary. Now, all these hormonal systems are connected to each other. They are not separate from each other. It's like a symphony, right? All the different instruments in the symphony are working together to create that magical sound. And if one instrument is not working, the sound is not going to be pretty. So similar things with these hormones, whether insulin, cortisol, thyroid hormone, your estrogen, your progesterone, all of these things are interconnected. So what you have seen in hypothyroid patients is that thyroid hormone is related to insulin sensitivities. There are receptors on the cells, and the thyroid hormone, when they connect with those receptors, it actually makes them more sensitive to insulin. When you do not have enough thyroid hormone or hypothyroid, that doesn't work that great. So that's the reason your body becomes insulin resistant slowly and slowly. And that insulin resistance, we know that ultimately cause inflammation in the body. We feel that again, major chronic diseases, the main starting point is insulin resistance that ultimately leads to inflammation that triggers an autoimmune response in the body, which leads to Hashimoto's or any other autoimmune condition, which again kind of starts this whole cascade of things. So GLP-1s are magical, that we definitely see great results with not only losing their weight, their inflammation markers goes down. We also see improvement in their antibody levels also, and that rebalances those. And a lot of times we also see their mood also improving, that people feel more energetic. They feel that a lot of times thyroid patients will kind of be on a yo-yo mood. One day they will wake up, they will feel tired. The next day they are frustrated. The next day they are angry. The fourth day they are actually very depressed. So GLP-1s actually kind of improves their mood to in a more steady fashion. So all of these benefits that we have seen the GLP-1s, and we use it a lot of in our clients. And again, very safe peptides, to be used. Obviously, we do see some GI upset with some people that they have to be careful with, and there is a way to use them. So obviously don't go and buy GLP-1s and start using it on their own. You have to work with a practitioner to use them in the proper fashion, but definitely they're very, very useful.
One other specific question on some of these types of kind of advanced compounds. It seems like a lot of patients have found NAD as a like a compound to treat some of the symptoms, because when you research symptoms that we've talked about, I think NAD is one of the things that pops up because of its effects on mitochondria. Trying to research how that would affect thyroid function seems to kind of give kind of this back and forth debate among people. What's your thoughts on using NAD as a compound for these people who have some version of Hashimoto's or hypothyroid?
So NAD, like became popular, as you said, because it supports your mitochondria. And, mitochondria is kind of interesting factor is that all of these symptoms can be related to mitochondrial health also, right? Your fatigue, your tiredness, your muscular performance, your brain performance, your gut, each and everything needs mitochondria to function. And NAD is an important molecule which supports the mitochondrial health. So especially for anti-aging benefits, your brain health, for brain fog issues, for energy issues, NAD works great. We have not seen great results or great research that supports that NAD directly supports or improves thyroid functioning. So let's say like if a person has thyroid antibodies or Hashimoto's, if they take NAD, do we see a lowering of antibody levels? Not really. So we don't see that happening. But NAD supports the mitochondria, so some of the symptoms can improve. Again, it is pretty safe, so there is not much downside to it. So if people are feeling better on NAD, I say, well, if it is getting better, that is okay. You can use it. But again, working on those root cause approach is very important too, because what we see is that people start taking NAD and they suddenly feel better in their energy and their mood. But over the course of time, it starts waning off and they kind of get into the same rut. So I feel that it gives you a boost, but unless you work on all the other things, it is not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, only use that boost to get back to kind of addressing the root cause if you are using it and find benefits. Doc, this is incredible. So reversing Hashimoto's, your book is kind of taking a lot of what we've talked about, right? And kind of giving people, the very direct kind of answers and steps. Let's get into, first of all, thank you for writing a book. I turned in my entire draft of my first book. That's been 3 years of research and everything last week. We've gone through a number of iterations of edits. So I thank everyone for just taking all of the energy and stress and mental difficulty of actually putting your thoughts on paper, because writing a book is way more difficult than I ever thought possible. But so thank you for taking the time to do that. But let's talk about reversing Hashimoto's and you putting that down.
Absolutely, yes. So again, I was looking at all the different books and all the things which are out there, and a lot of the books have been written in a very heavy medical language. They throw out a lot of research studies and with thinking that people will understand each and everything. So my goal was to write a book which was research based, but in a language where people can understand, and then the things they can implement easily in their life. So that's where I wrote this book in an easy language, but with a lot of research studies, which we give references in behind at the end of the book, so they know that what we are talking about does have some scientific backing. So the book was very simple. It has 3 steps to kind of helping people with Hashimoto's disease. And as you said, a lot of these steps we already discussed. But the very first step is identifying the root cause, right? All of the 5 root causes that we kind of shared with people, most people will have more than 2 or 3 root causes over there. So in the book, we have laid down certain questionnaires that people can take that might give us some ideas about what are the root causes they are dealing with, or different categories of root causes. So that's first thing, people need to identify what different categories of root causes they're dealing with so they can do more specific things on that. In fact, on my website, if they will go to, which is the anshulguptamd.com, we have a free thyroid quiz, which is the root cause analysis quiz. By again answering those questions, people will actually get a score or different categories, so that will get them an idea of what are their major root causes. So that's the very first step, identifying the root cause. The second thing is actually start fixing the thyroid or the Hashimoto's disease. So we have developed this, mitothyroid diet, which again is based on the aspects of reducing inflammation, so removing food which is bad for the thyroid and the mitochondria, and introducing foods which helps regenerate your thyroid gland and fix your mitochondria. So that's the basis of that diet that people start using it. And also we introduce certain supplements which are helping to regenerate mitochondria and thyroid, and those nutritional deficiencies are taken care of it with the selenium, the zinc, the vitamin D on those things. So that's the second step of kind of trying to fix your thyroid and mitochondria so that they start functioning again. And the very third step is removing the toxicities, right? So we spoke about those different toxins, which are the toxins like heavy metals, mold, and the environmental toxins, or the infections, which might be playing a role. So how to improve your immunity, and the last one is definitely the stress that everybody is dealing with. So how to remove these toxicity. So once your thyroid is regenerating, you do not harm it again. So you get sustainable results, even after completing the protocol. So very simple three-step process that we have discussed in the book, and give them relevant steps how they can improve this.
So good. It's so good and so needed. I know a lot of y'all listening to this, like a lot of this matches things that you're talking to us about and that you're probably feeling. So dive in. We'll have links to Dr. Gupta's website and book and all that stuff in the show notes. So make sure you check that out. But take action on it. Get started with these 3 steps, because I can only imagine how many lives that you're starting to change with some of this stuff. Can people work with y'all directly? Do y'all have an option where they can get involved with your practice?
Absolutely, yes. So again, several years ago, we became a completely virtual telemedicine, functional medicine practice. So people can literally work from anywhere in the world with us. We have set up different protocols, and we work one to one directly with them to help identify their root cause, and then make a stepwise plan to address all of those root causes. And the good part is that, it's a completely functional medicine and a natural practice. So we are going to only use the lifestyle changes and the supplements to improve their situations.
Nice. And that's on your website as well. They'll find some of that stuff on there.
That's correct. Yes, if they go on my website, all the information of how to work with us, all the links are over there. So they can click the link and then easily make an appointment to work with us.
Doc, this has been incredible. I've got notes like scattered all over my page right here. So this really has been incredibly informative. I think people are going to take so much from this. I'll leave you with this. We ask all of our guests, if people can do one thing today to improve their health, what would that be?
The first thing I would like everybody to is not to lose hope. There is hope for you to get better. Do not let anybody tell you that you cannot improve your Hashimoto's or you cannot improve your thyroid health. Several people have done it with us, several people have done it on their own. So do not lose hope. There is hope for you to get better. The very first thing you need to do is just change your diet. I think that will help a lot of people remove foods which are bad for you and eat foods which are good for you. If you do these things itself, within a month or two, you're going to see incredible results.
Dr. Gupta, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.